Hey there, my name is Rachael and welcome to the Magdala podcast. We at Magdala know from experience that pornography, masturbation, and other sexual addictions are not just a guy problem. The need for women to be accompanied in a journey towards healing from addiction has gone sorely unmet, and that's why we're here. Magdala exists as a space where women can find hope, healing, and freedom alongside each other from sexual addiction. Our goal is to supply you with support, community, and accountability. Here on the podcast, you'll find everything from testimonies to practical advice to dialogue about how to heal and live fully as a Catholic woman. Wherever you are in your journey, know that you're not alone, and we welcome you to this table. Welcome back to Happy Acres. I don't know why that's the first thing I said. Okay.
It's called Happy Dale, Rachel.
Happy Dale?
Happy Dale. That's where they send the special people.
I thought you referred to Ave as Happy Dale.
Oh, my dad did.
Your dad did. Okay.
Every time I came home from school, every time I come home from school or came home from school in the past, he would say, "And how are they treating you at Happy Dale?" like I've been sent off to an asylum.
Oh my gosh.
That is the role I have in my family.
I called it Happy Acres. I don't know. It just seemed like Happy Acres.
It kind of does. Like, everyone's like eerily happy there for the most part. Except it wasn't eerie to me. It was peaceful. But some people found it weird. I don't know.
I mean, yeah, I think it was mostly peaceful. It definitely felt like the Truman Show. Like, on a sunny day in January when it's like 80 degrees and you're walking around and everybody's smiling, you're like, I'm pretty sure this is just the Truman Show. Like, at any minute I'm gonna walk too far and I'm gonna tear the wallpaper at the end of the ocean.
Yep.
Anyway,
you're gonna be off the set.
Our beloved alma mater. Okay, well, welcome back to the Magdala podcast, folks. I have Mary Jo Carney back with me today because as I was telling her before we started recording, she's a crowd pleaser, and I've missed you. I've missed having you on the podcast. So we're going to talk about body image today, but before we do that, just a disclaimer on our microphones. Recording a podcast over FaceTime is never easy. So if you hear lots of breathing from either side, we have less control over it when we're not in person. So just... That was it. I just heard it.
Yep, and I knew you would.
Yeah.
Anytime you hear me get really happy or really sad, there's more breathing.
There's more breathing because you're human. So
oh well.
We're just glad you're alive, Mary Jo. We're glad you're alive and with us today, and your breath is a sign of the fact that you're alive. Serious. I know, profound. Okay. Okay, so yeah, I mean, obviously you're taking the floor mostly for this one, but why do you think we need an episode on body image? Why do you care about this topic?
Gosh, well, I really care about this topic just based out of a lot of personal experience that I've had. And the kind of body image we're going to talk about today is really that sort of like negative body image. And it had such an intense relationship with my journey with pornography, and was actually kind of like the reason why I began like turning to pornography and just in general, like the internet, right? Which we'll get more into, but I think that it's so related. Yes. I think that every woman in general in our culture has a certain struggle with body image just because the messages we send out in our culture about the woman's body are so dysfunctional and distorted. And then I think that adding any kind of interaction with pornography on top of that, just kind of, things get a little crazy.
Yes. Yes. Well, and I think it's often spoken about how, you know, in circles where only men struggle with pornography is spoken about it, you know, it's talked about how men begin to see women's bodies differently and in an unrealistic light. And, you know, that would automatically translate to if women are watching pornography, we would start to see ourselves in a very unrealistic light. Or struggle with the fact that we don't look like what we're seeing, or or just the shame involved. And so it's very complex, but it is something we, as we've discussed, like we commonly see in our small groups, we commonly see in the women coming to us. But it translates. It definitely does, because if men can see us differently, we can see ourselves differently because of negative effects. But when would you say your journey with negative body image began?
Yeah, so I had just sort of like an intensely confusing and uncomfortable experience of puberty, as many women do, I think. Um, but that happened around like when I was 10 years old. Everything started happening, and I really didn't know what was going on. I had no older sisters. I'm
Oh,
the
wow.
first girl in my family. I've got three older brothers. And I mean, I am like so insanely childlike. I think I believed in Santa Claus till I was 13. Okay. This is what we're dealing with here.
Oh my gosh.
So I definitely like never gave a single thought to the fact that like, oh, at some point, like I'm going to get older and I'm going to look more like a woman, right?
Right.
Never thought about that.
Right.
And when it began happening, my mom, God bless her, has no filter and just made comments like, oh, wow, is that pretty early, you know? And so stuff like that made me feel even more alienated from my own body, almost like betrayed by my own body, because I was thinking to myself, okay, something's wrong because it's so early.
Yeah.
And now my childhood is over. And like these sound really silly, okay, but these are the thoughts of a 10-year-old girl.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
you know, just it felt like such a big deal to me. And watching her treat it like not such a big deal was kind of difficult, you know?
Yeah.
So that's sort of when I guess I became aware of my body, right? And I think that that's something too that we kind of go through as women is we're not really even conscious of something like body image until we become aware of our bodies. And as
Right.
children, I mean, we just don't really have all that many reasons to think that intensely about our bodies. So
Yeah.
definitely started with puberty for me, like the development of my body image.
Yeah.
And as I was going through that same period of development, there was also some, what I would have to call like verbal abuse happening in my home. And some of it was kind of targeted on my identity as a woman. And it was just sort of like criticism of my womanhood, just really, really kind of small things that probably many women have heard before. Of someone saying to them like, oh, well, you're just silly. You're just, you know, saying that because you're a woman, or you're just doing that because you're a woman.
Yeah.
And, you know, that might not sound like such a big deal to some people, but when you take a child who is going through such an intense period of bodily change towards becoming a woman, and now you're also targeting that as like you're the main reason that you're going to criticize them for something. For me, it just created like an even stronger resentment about the fact that I was born a woman, that I was now developing into one against my will. And that was really hard for me. You know, I've always sort of been like the tomboy right after my three brothers and for other reasons sort of just kind of been like, man, why am I a woman? You know? And so it didn't help to hear someone else like saying stuff like that, because I'm like, okay, well, I'm not happy about it either, but it's not my choice, right? Like God creates us, for better or worse, in the sex that he creates us for a reason. And it's mysterious, and it's our lifelong journey to accept it and love it, right? But you know, things kind of progressed after that as well, because I had like a long-term problem with thyroid dysfunction, and that was kind of present early on, and from even the age of puberty. Like I could tell that my mom was concerned about it, and she would tell me things like, well, you know, you're going to get taller, you're going to thin out. You're going to thin out, she would say that, right? Again, like well-meaning comments, like nothing against my mom, love her to pieces, and we've talked about all this and reconciled. So, but that, you know, as a 12-year-old, that hit me the wrong way. I had already had my one and only growth spurt. I grew like 5 inches when I was 12. That's all I got. So,
wow. Well, I mean,
I got 5 inches and like wider hips, and that's all that happened. I've been kind of the same for a really long time. But years and years of sort of trying different ways of eating, like let's try cutting out gluten and now dairy and now cut out sugar, it also kind of sent a message on some level that, okay, something's wrong with my body. Something's wrong. Something's not working right, which in some sense was true. I actually do have sensitivities to those things, which I now understand as a result of a brain injury I had when I was 9.
Wow.
That was just untreated and unknown about for a long time. But yeah, I would say like by the time I entered high school, I was just so uncomfortable in my own body. I was miserable. And I actually had people, I remember that first year of high school, tell me that the way that I walked was kind of strange, right? I realized that I was kind of subconsciously just trying to keep everything as like stationary as possible. I didn't want any of my curvy lady parts like moving around, drawing any extra attention to themselves than they needed to. Or I remember when I started to see a chiropractor, she was telling me like, man, your posture is really, really bad, and that's actually why you're having backaches. And I realized, well, I have been chronically sort of maintaining a hunched over posture ever since the time that I started developing breasts, because I was just so ashamed.
Oh, wow.
Right?
Yeah.
Just these sort of like mental, these mindsets that we have about the body in these very small ways, like they were influencing already how I felt physically, how I moved through the world physically. And somewhere in the midst of all this intense body shame and honestly just kind of lack of information about my changing body, I did what a lot of kids do even now, and especially now, and I turned to the internet to tell me about what's normal. What is a normal woman's body? What is an ideal woman's body? And that's a dangerous question.
Yes.
To offer the internet. What is an ideal woman's body? An ideal woman's body on the internet is, well, gosh, we've got some like little facts here from one of my favorite resources, the Body Project, and I think one of them was talking about computer tactics to modify. It usually takes them at least 2 hours to modify a woman to look how they want her to look on the internet, right?
Oh my gosh.
So I was fascinated in a way, in a sense, by what I saw when I turned to the internet for an answer to this. I was fascinated by how confident and beautiful and comfortable like lingerie models and such seemed to be in their own skin. Compared to how I felt in my body, which was just kind of awkward and dirty. But then pretty quickly, just seeing basic images turned into much more. And that's actually how I at first encountered pornography, actually. And again, like I was just such a child. Like I actually remember one of my friends telling me a joke about sex when I was like, gosh, maybe 11. And I remember at that point, I still had like no clue. I really didn't know anything until I saw it. And then I remember the thought in my head, like, oh, duh, this is how it happens. Not like whatever magical sort of non-invasive process you used to think it was. You like crazy child, you. Right? But it was not ideal, right? Because I had already, as we all are, been influenced by some of the negative aspects of my own parents' marriage and other marriages that I saw around me that were not fantastic. And then to be introduced to the marital act in that way,
so disturbing.
It disturbs me, and it caused me to be repulsed by all of it, and so that's sort of what I would term the problem phase of my life. Like that's sort of kind of how like the negative body image rolled out into my life. To answer your question,
I'm so interested because I've reflected on puberty's relationship to my pornography addiction many times. because I was a late bloomer. I was a very late bloomer, and there was almost a shame in that. And I became like obsessive about the process of puberty and like when would it happen to me. And so I had like the opposite reaction. I didn't have repulsion. I had like obsession of like, why is this not happening? All of my friends are looking a certain way and I look like a string bean. Like, what's going on? So it's just, you know, it is interesting how opposite ends of the spectrum can still try to find answers in the same false sources. Because I think, yeah, my exposure to pornography came soon after I started puberty, but I was still looking for answers to very confusing situations and questions I had from my childhood, from unwanted experiences, and then kind of the sexual awakening of, you know, the body brings those experiences up, and you're like, I just feel the same awkwardness that I felt then. I feel it all the time now. Like, what is going on? But yeah, so I'm just intrigued because I had never thought about it being kind of similar if you're early, you know, which I think now looking at it, I feel like the scientific world has developed a little bit, at least, where it's like, okay, we used to say puberty happens at 12 or right at, you know, it's like, no, it's so wild.
It's variable, and it is becoming younger as well.
Yes, it is. Yep.
From different like scientific sources I've seen, there does seem to be a trend of it becoming younger and younger as well. And also, like, this is possibly a little too niche, but for a first daughter as well, I've seen different studies and theories about like why would it happen earlier for a first daughter in a family, you know, because I was sort of in like this caretaking role in my family, you know, like our youngest was born when I was 11.
Yeah.
And I was like in charge of his care and all that when my mom was at work and stuff. So so there's all kinds of like complex reasons, like why would it begin when it begins? But I think you're totally onto something there. Like whenever it begins, for, you know, every woman is thinking to herself almost like, oh man, it's all wrong because it's too early, or oh man, it's all wrong because it's too late. And really it's just, every woman's different.
It's just a weird time, any way you slice it. Okay, so you also had some interesting family constructs surrounding modesty that I think a lot of people could relate to if you wanted to get into that as well, like those negative effects on body image as well.
Yeah. You're referring to the skirts thing?
Yeah. I think this is a good point.
Yeah, I know, because it comes up a lot, actually. In conversations with other Catholic women. So I want to be clear that like skirts are not a mandate in my family. My mom wears skirts and pants like half and half of the time. However, I was homeschooled until I was in high school, with the exception of 1 year of public school when I was 9. And as any of you listening who have traveled in Catholic homeschooling circles may know, modesty is a hot topic. And feminine dress, if you want to call it that, and just modesty for women are just really, really promoted, I guess. And to the extent with some moms and some families where it's kind of encouraged to just wear skirts like most or all the time, and even to make sure you're wearing like quite long skirts. And this was kind of like my excuse when I was sort of hiding my body because I was so ashamed of it. I've got what you might call like a mesomorphic endomorphic body type. Like I build muscle pretty easily, but I can also like gain weight kind of easily if I'm not, you know, eating right, moving right. And I also had those thyroid problems for a long time. Sure. So I was super ashamed of, because I've got kind of like a short leg, long torso body. Yeah. I was super ashamed of my legs in particular for the longest time. And the homeschool prescription to wear long skirts was like my savior. Like I just got really into that, and sometimes it was kind of cute, I guess, like kind of bohemian style skirts. But I mean, I was wearing skirts, even like long jean skirts, right? Because I grew up in Nebraska. It's very, very cold here.
Yeah.
That I would just never put a finger on right now. Now that I'm comfortable in pants.
Right.
And so it's kind of funny because, yeah, we had this debate recently with our small group moderators about pants and about some of the saints, cough, cough, Padre Pio, who say that, like, if you wear them, you're going to go to hell.
That was Padre Pio? Really?
Well, one of my friends told me that. I hope she's wrong.
Really? Wow. I've never heard him cited as a source before. Interesting.
Maybe it was not him. I hope to God it wasn't. That's just what she keeps throwing out there. She's like, Padre Pio says if you wear pants, you're going to hell. And I'm kind of like, wow, this is interesting. Because to me, when I was always wearing skirts 24/7, it became more so a negative thing, and because it was like something I was doing because I was ashamed of my body.
Yeah.
Right. And then now, today, when I wear pants, it's almost like I have to mentally own up to my body and respect it and be just accepting of it in order to do that. It's less noticeable now than it was, like, say, a few years ago because, I don't know, I'm just, my body image is better now. Yeah. But especially when I first started wearing pants for real, I mean, I don't think I owned jeans until I was like 16.
Oh my gosh. Wow.
When I first started wearing them, I was just so uncomfortable. You know, and it's kind of funny because I remember thinking, like, now I can never go back. Now my secret is out. Like, who cares? It's a pair of pants, and they could tell what your body type was, whether you were wearing a long skirt or a pair of jeans. Like, people know. You can't hide that.
I know. I think I was homeschooled for 5 years, and I remember wearing jeans to my homeschool co-op, and there's just a lot of comments about like the particular types of jeans you would wear. Or one day I wore sweatpants.
Oh my, that's practically pajamas, like, Rachel.
I know, not yoga pants. I wore sweatpants that I got at like Target or something, and I thought they were cool. You know,
did they say like princess on the butt or something like
no,
that? That would have been great. The shock factor on that would have been so great.
My mom was anti anything written on the butt, and I kind of agree with her on that. I'm like, I don't think I need anything written on my butt. We're good.
Same.
No, they were pretty simple, like blue sweatpants or something. And I just remember like so many comments on the pants wearing, and not even something I necessarily noticed at the time because I was just used to it. But looking back, I'm like, wow, like I had adults like commenting on my pants. Like, that's unhealthy. Like that's kind of toxic that, you know, adults who I don't really know, like my friends' moms, you know, are commenting on what types of pants I'm wearing. Like that's a lot. Yeah. That's a lot.
I mean, I could see if it was like a situation of like a very formal mass or something, a celebration.
Sure.
Right? And we talk about this all the time, that modesty is so situational, right?
Yes.
To wear sweatpants to a wedding would obviously be inappropriate. I would probably say something too.
Yeah. Yes.
But if it's a really cold day in Nebraska and you're going off to Spanish class, like, put on some sweats.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, you're there. No, I think, the standards of modesty could be a whole different discussion. But I think a lot of our conversations surrounding it and modesty and body image and stuff is just incredibly shame-based, and that's had lasting effects on the generations who have been subject to it. All right, so I guess, how did you begin addressing negative body image? And did you do it in conjunction with your addiction, or were they kind of a separate battle?
Oh, well, everything was together in my recovery. And it's kind of funny now looking back on it. And obviously it continues to this day. But when I look back on it, I think it's funny because, like I would start going to talk therapy because I was having panic attacks, not because I was watching pornography. But obviously they were all intertwined.
Right.
And
Right.
so, although I may have been doing some things because I thought that they would just, in that targeted, specific way, help that one thing, um, they had an effect on everything. So, when I'll talk about some of my recovery with the body image, but it's really just kind of in general talking about my recovery because um, whether or not I realized it, by doing what I did, um, it helped it helped the body image, even if I never, because I don't think I even realized I had a problem with body image until my second year at college, maybe when I was, gosh, I must have been 19. Yeah.
Wow.
I definitely did not realize that. And really not until like the end of that year as well, which it happened because I was actually trying to have a good working relationship with the Women's Resource Center at our school because I was getting ready to start the Pregnant on Campus initiative, which is a
Yeah.
fantastic, fantastic initiative, pro-life work for pregnant and parenting students.
Mm-hmm.
And just when I was getting introduced to them, I saw that they had this thing called the Body Project. And I thought, that sounds interesting. And then I read about it and I saw, like, you know what, this actually might be applicable to me. And I've always been one that's like up to join groups, classes, whatever. If it involves learning, I'm there, right?
Yeah.
Big fan of that. So I just joined the group. It was very short. I think they run anywhere from 4 to 6 sessions normally, and I learned quite a few things. Um, and I actually printed off this like fact sheet from the Body Project if we want to talk about some of those, or I can just keep talking about my recovery.
No, give us some
Um,
facts. Yeah.
but some of the things that they told us at the start of this group really helped me to realize that the microcosm, or whatever you want to, I think that's the right word for this, the microcosm in which I had developed my negative body image was just so dysfunctional that like every woman should know some of these things. Um, for example, we've got a couple of anecdotes from a woman who worked at a fashion magazine. And they literally had this sort of written out so everyone on the team was clear about it. What's the function of a fashion magazine? It's to convince women that something's wrong with them, such as their hair, body, sex life, etc., so they can sell their product, which is the content of the magazine, to fix it. The more anxious they make you, the more likely you will buy the magazine, and the larger their readership, which increases advertising sales.
Wow.
And so that's one thing about magazines, which are everywhere, right? You can't just buy, 3 bananas without finding out also that something's wrong with your butt that you didn't know about.
Right.
That's nice. We talked about computer tactics before.
Yeah.
This one's kind of interesting. The average American woman is 5 feet 4 inches tall and weighs 140 pounds. The average American model is 5'11 and weighs 117 pounds.
Oh my.
Models are thinner than 98% of American women, according to an article from 1996. And 20 years ago, models weighed 8% less than the average woman. Today, they weigh 23% less, and most of them fall into the anorexic weight range. This one is great. I could never forget this one. Someone did an article once in the British Medical Journal in 1992 called "Could Mannequins Menstruate?" If shop mannequins were real women, they would be too thin to menstruate and bear children.
Wow.
Because they don't have enough body fat to menstruate just based off of their proportions, right? So it's just completely shocking to me, in light of this, that this is the kind of body that we're telling every woman is ideal, is a body that is capable only of strutting down a runway, never having children, and just making money for dieting and fashion magazine tycoons. It's mind-boggling.
Well, and the fitness industry for a long time was driven by that as well. And I was actually thinking about this the other day, how I think we've seen a positive change in the fitness industry from primarily weight focused, like lose weight, to be healthy and enjoy yourself.
Yeah.
And I think that's a really good change. It's like, show up, work hard. You do get to see results, but those results may actually be you gaining weight, but you're gaining muscle, you know? So I think we're seeing a positive change begin to happen, at least in the fitness industry. And I hope it makes it into fashion as well. Because I think we're seeing a bit of change in fashion, but I think it's kind of bridged sort of into justifying obesity. It's kind of strange, like the tone that it's taking right now. But
yeah, sometimes it's a little like, I hate to call it overly positive, but that exists too. And I know that we might make like a body image part 2 podcast to address that. That's how we break it up in our group work.
Yep.
We've got one that's sort of more about negative body image, and one that's about the possible like overvaluation of the body or certain parts of the body, right? You know, the pendulum swings both ways. But yeah, I definitely think that that some of these things, just knowing them, and anyone can look up this great project, the Body Project, and read about these facts yourself. It's just nice to know, you know, this project that I got involved with in my school years. It's actually it's actually an eating disorder prevention group.
Wow.
Trying, and it has been like scientifically proven to prevent or at least reduce the onset of eating disorders, right? Because isn't that crazy that now it's not even, they're not even hoping to entirely prevent an eating disorder from an American woman's life, but they're just like damage control. Like, how can we make this less catastrophic?
Oh my gosh.
Is kind of exactly what happened for me in my life, and we can kind of get into my recovery. But part of my recovery was definitely like nutrition based, diet based, and even having done the Body Project and knowing all that stuff, then yeah, there became at some point an overvaluation of health based protocols in my own life. And I mean, I've tried and done so many things. Like, I've done your basic, like, gluten-free, dairy-free, sugar-free diets. I've done autoimmune paleo, normal paleo, gut and psychology syndrome, elimination diet, anti-inflammatory diet, antifungal diet, candida diet.
Wow.
And granted, like, these all did help me in some way. And really, they do really work, okay? But I always tell my friends who want to know about, like, why it is that I eat in such a particular way, I always tell them, well, if you're going to undertake one of these nutritional protocols, please do yourself a favor. Hire a nutritionist. Hire a dietitian. Work with somebody on this, because at some point in my efforts, I definitely did become disordered about it. Yeah. My nutritionist actually told me towards the end of our time together, when I was 20 years old, that she was concerned that I had developed orthorexia, which I had never heard about before. Yeah. You know, everybody knows about like binge eating, anorexia, bulimia. But orthorexia is actually an unhealthy focus on eating in a healthy way, which is like so prevalent in our society right now, honestly.
Yes. Yeah. I was about to say, like,
yeah. I just remember her telling me this, and my first thought was like, well, but I still haven't been doing, you know, I think at the time we were doing an anti-inflammatory diet. And I thought, well, I still haven't been doing perfectly the anti-inflammatory diet. So how could I possibly have orthorexia? Because I'm not perfect, which is exactly what
I was about to say. Completely illustrative. Well, and okay, how did porn fuel this though? How did porn fuel the bodily dissatisfaction, fuel the perfectionism in health? Like, how did these two coincide? Like, unpack that relationship for me a bit more.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, well, porn kind of fueled my body dissatisfaction. And because I was just constantly exposing myself to images of women who just seemed to look so much more perfect than my developing, you know, and somewhat health troubled body. And by doing so, it also increased my social isolation. which in turn then left me vulnerable to using more and more porn. So it just became this kind of vicious cycle of body dissatisfaction in conjunction with porn use. So it's just keeping me from having a healthy life, especially in my social life, and that just made me vulnerable to more and more porn use. You know, it just was a horrible circle. And a lot of times when I had setbacks, like there was this lie in my mind that, well, yeah, it doesn't really matter because I'm never going to have sex with anyone because I'm not desirable enough to. So, you know, because I was aware of the fact that like pornography is an obvious sort of violation of at least marital chastity. I was able to see that like using pornography in a relationship would be basically like cheating. But I thought to myself, well, there's just no one out there for me. You know, that was so often at the root of my porn use was just like a hopelessness about that. And so I often thought like, well, there's no one out there for me. So who am I cheating on by watching this? Right.
Yeah.
Which is honestly just like so bitter and so self-pitying.
But
like
so
I
common.
just got lost in all
common.
the self-pity.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. What broke that cycle though?
Oh man. Just years and years of counseling and efforts to be better and efforts to fill my life with things that are better and are just so much more fulfilling than pornography. You know, I was able over time to finally recognize the causes of my genuine body problems, because I did have them, right?
Yeah.
And
absolutely.
If you struggle with a negative body image, if you're listening to this and you struggle with a negative body image, and you also have like genuine like medical health problems, like take care of yourself, you know?
Yes.
That definitely helps, you know? I learned about hormonal imbalances and was able to resolve those. I learned about like even like charting my cycle so it would be really precise, and that helped me to like respect my femininity more, for example, and helped me to understand why I struggled more with chastity at some times of the month than others. If you don't know what I'm talking about, then that's why you should learn a little bit about fertility awareness.
Yes, learn about ovulation and what it does to your brain, please.
And even other times of the month too, you know, because every woman is unique and has her unique sort of hormonal blueprint, right? Yep. And another thing that really, really helped me, especially with confidence, was just working out every day in a healthy way. Because I remember back in high school, I would force myself to wake up extremely early, go down to the one, you know, piece of physical activity equipment we had in the basement, which was a treadmill, and I would force myself to run on the treadmill, which was just horrible and not super helpful, honestly, when I think about my adrenal health and my thyroid health now. Probably not the ideal form of exercise, but when I was 20, and I sort of like took a hot second to figure my health out, I started exercising every day. I learned that I just had to stop caring about what I was going to look like as a result of my exercise. I just had to start showing up, getting stronger, which I really enjoyed, right? I kind of discovered that like my body type is really just naturally enjoys like weight training, for example. And I started seeing results, honestly, which was so encouraging and really, really improved my confidence. I was able to do it with accountability. I was able to do it with a family member I was living with at the time, my aunt, who was fantastic, and she kind of got me back into Zumba as well, which was like a whole nother story. But I mean, Zumba has really, really improved my body image, specifically as a woman, and kind of become a place where I feel like I can go to just express femininity in a really fun, really positive way. And so I just never felt really confident about the goodness of my body until I became more active. And I think that makes sense, actually, because I think I needed to feel fully physically alive in order to be in touch with myself and in order to recognize what a gift God had given me through creating me as an embodied being. I mean, I think we take this for granted sometimes, that we're not, you know, we're created as embodied beings. Not every created being is embodied. And that is a gift.
Yeah.
Right? So I just think that becoming more active increases your self-awareness, your sense of self, and the latter of which was really important to me, especially because I used to struggle a little bit with dissociation, which is like a direct disruption between the mind and the body. So it kind of just like glued me back together in a sense, made me more connected between my head and my heart and the rest of me. And also, as we've talked about before, I really think that having the discipline necessary to train your body is a part of what will make someone successful in their fight against lust, practically speaking.
Yeah.
Because practically speaking, it makes it easier to shoot down that lie that, like, oh, you're never going to date or marry anyone, because physical fitness is an undeniably attractive quality. Like, no one can say that's not hot. Sorry, world. Sorry, I went there. But, like, it's just true. Like, someone who takes care of themselves is attractive.
Taking care of yourself is, absolutely.
Right? But more importantly, if you have that discipline to train your body, like, how much more successful in every area of your life. But, yeah, especially also with chastity, especially also with not being compulsive about your sexuality, being intentional and loving about it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. When I was in recovery, I was running every night, like without fail. And, not for appearance, not for anything. And I think that was an ideal form of fitness for my body at the time. Now it's not. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I mean, I think every night suiting up and going out, because in Florida, that's the only time you can run other than the early morning without dying. But just recovery in college, I don't think I would have kept it as long term if I hadn't committed to fitness every single day. Because
absolutely,
it is the almost the mortification of the body. Like, working out, like, doesn't really feel good at first until, at least halfway through. But at first you're like, why did I do this to myself? Or at least that's my mental process with workouts, is I show up and then for the first 15 minutes, I'm like, I hate this. I hate everyone here. I hate gyms. I hate weights. I hate everything I'm touching. I don't want to be here. But then, like, afterward, it's that gratification of like, wow, okay, I sacrificed and look at the result. I'm a healthier person because of it, whether I can see it or not. And that is huge when fighting addiction.
Definitely. Yeah, I think there's phases of it, like the first couple months for me of truly working out every day. That was never something I had tried before I was 20. So I remember the first month or two. It was so uncomfortable.
Right.
I was like I hate all of this. And then something kind of magical happened about like 3 months in.
Wow.
Maybe sooner than that, but definitely at least by 3 months in, I actually noticed I would wake up in the morning craving to move, craving to be active, craving to do something.
Yep.
And, as women, it ebbs and flows at different times of the month. And I think that's important to take into account. And it's important to have kindness and gentleness with yourself. Like, when you're a little closer to starting a new cycle, you're going to have a little less energy. So don't do 2 miles on the treadmill. Just wake up and do some Pilates, wake up and stretch, do something, right?
Yeah.
Just do something,
I love that.
And that's what I tell people. Like, if you can't afford a personal trainer, I mean, welcome to the club. Like, try something like Beachbody. I did that at first, and that really helped me because the programming was there. So I wasn't like overworking any one area of my body, and I wasn't getting bored.
I love Beachbody right now. I freaking love Beachbody.
Oh yeah. It's fantastic. 21-day fix all the way, y'all. Like, that's what got me in shape for the first time in my life.
They're also just really positive. Like, I really like their messaging. It can get corny sometimes, but they're overall very positive. And they have all different, at least in the ones I was doing, they have very different body types in their classes. Like, they show very different body types, very different looking people. Like, it's a mix, and that's something I appreciate too. So I'm like, I don't want to watch a workout video with a bunch of people that don't look like me. Hence the negative body image thing. But.
Okay, so never do Brazilian butt lift then, because like the girls all look the same, and they all have this same creepy smile on as they're doing these like horribly like burning moves. But I gotta be honest, I love Brazilian butt lift because every time I watch it, I'm like laughing half the time.
That's what happens to me. Yeah. It's motivating.
Like, a great workout in the other
You're
half
like,
of the
I'm
time.
entertained and I'm working out. Okay, so what would you say then to the women who are, seeking out our resources, who are carrying with them an extremely negative body image and it's inherently linked to their addiction?
Yeah, well, I mean, first and foremost, I would say vocalize that to your small group leader, okay? Because if you recognize that that is like one central thing that that really affects you, vocalize that to your small group leader. Because I don't know, every small group leader does group their way, and we give them license to do that, and I think that's important and necessary. We're all volunteers here. But I know with my girls, I like to sort of have a pulse on like what issues are more pressing to each of them, and I'll even offer them like some one-on-one time as necessary to just flush through those issues. So yeah, bring it to your small group leader, bring it to your accountability buddy. Have some good conversations about it with your accountability buddy. I mean, let this podcast be like your first discussion builder if you're looking for some intro into it, right? Just be honest with yourself about the effects of your pornography use or fantasizing on your own body image. How has it really affected the way you view yourself, and be honest with yourself about it. I think that there's such a huge level of cognitive dissonance and denial in our minds.
Completely. It's a hallmark.
When it comes to these things, right? But I mean, I know I had to just be honest with myself that like, even to this day, sometimes I will make certain choices about my physical appearance that I have to take a step back and ask myself, where is this coming from? Where is this desire coming from? And is it coming from an authentic desire to be, feminine and beautiful? Or is this one of my porn-fueled desires? Because whether or not we're willing to admit it, pornography absolutely changes the way that we view what is the what the Body Project might call the appearance ideal. What is the ideal appearance, right? So coming to terms with that personally and bringing it into some relationships in your life for discussion is great. And then I think allowing yourself to imagine like what it would be like if you had a better relationship with your body, ask yourself like, how do I want to feel about myself and my body when I wake up, when I make choices about getting dressed, and all that, when I present myself to others. And what do you need to do to get there, right? Usually that's just the basic things that we all need to do to take care of ourselves without putting such strict conditions on what the output of those habits is going to be, right?
Right, yeah.
Because here I'm talking really about like health habits. Don't get me wrong, a nice manicure and getting your hair done is fantastic, okay? But I see that as kind of more like the top of the pyramid of how do we take care of our bodies, start with the basics. Just start with the basics. Health over beauty efforts all the way, in my opinion, because that's what's going to actually make you physically feel good. And when you're physically feeling good and you have a real smile on your face, that is 10 times more attractive than the sad girl with the perfect nails and the perfectly curled hair.
Agreed.
So I think just being willing to work with health practitioners to make those health changes as well, because a lot of us are not willing to spend money on ourselves for some reason in this area. It's not spoiling yourself if it's health related. Ladies. If you have possible hormone imbalance, if you have untreated brain injury, if you have digestive difficulties, or just even not as much energy as you'd like to have day to day, you are not spoiling yourself
to get that treated.
By considering working with a nutritionist, a personal trainer, a functional neurologist, or whatever it may be. Be open to that, for the sake of your health and for the sake of who that will impact, which is basically all your loved ones, right? Because when we feel better, everyone around us does. So
absolutely.
Yeah. And then I guess the last thing I would say is like, stop. Well, two last things. individually, we have to make a commitment to stop making deconstructive statements about our bodies.
Yeah.
Especially around other women.
Yep.
You know?
Yep.
And this starts with your mind and your thoughts. You know, if you catch yourself having a thought about your body that's deconstructive, question it. Question yourself. Where did that come from? Does it have a rational basis? And the reason I say deconstructive here is because, like, we all have negative thoughts about our bodies from time to time, and that's quite natural and that's quite normal. But is it a negative thought that might prompt you to make a change that you need to make for the betterment of your health care? Or is it a negative thought that's just baseless and deconstructive? Like, you are a fat, stupid, ugly woman. I'm sorry, there's just what possible good could you derive out of that? It's totally deconstructive, right?
Yeah, and where does it come from? Yeah.
And then I think the other thing is that we have to not tolerate. Don't tolerate the common ways in which the women around you are putting down their bodies. Stand up for their dignity and their worth, even if they won't.
Amen.
Even if they don't want to. And I have a lot of ideas about this one. You know, if it's a really big group situation and there's just not time, or if it's not appropriate, most often I just ignore whatever negative statement has been made, because I'm like, I'm not going to feed it with my attention.
Right.
I'm not going to even acknowledge that just happened. Okay. Yeah. Sometimes, and this is my favorite, if they're fishing for compliments, sometimes I'll literally just agree with whatever they're saying, you know, and this is really appropriate for a close friend. You know, if you've got a close friend over and they're saying to themselves, like, this dress makes me look so fat, you know, sometimes I'll just look at them and I'll go, yeah, you are so right. And then I'll just smile really big and watch them realize that I'm joking, you know?
Yeah.
Just like trying to encourage everyone, like, don't take yourself so seriously, you know?
Yeah.
You know, and I mean, if they make a lot of those comments, then you can respond sincerely, right? You can sincerely address it and say, like, you know, like if you made a lot of comments, Rachel, I'd say, like, you know, Rachel, if you're really not satisfied about the way you feel or the way you look, that's okay. We all have to think from time to time about what we can do to improve our health. And if you want to talk about that together sometime, then I'm here for you. You know, let's talk about it. But if it's kind of just like a casual thing that they do all the time and you're annoyed by it and you can't ignore it anymore, something I'll often say is like, hey, I don't appreciate the way you're talking about my friend Rachel. Like, I think she's really fantastic. So if you could stop bagging on her, that'd be great.
I love that. Yeah.
And just kind of like gentle but like funny responses like that, I think really help to make women a little more aware about what it is that they're engaging in when they make those statements, because it's not a small thing.
Yeah.
When it comes to eating, which is just probably the most intimately tied thing to body image, one thing that really helped me to get out of my disordered eating was a book called Intuitive Eating, and this is like a bedrock staple in the world of eating disorders. Like, every psychologist or counselor will recommend this to you for a good reason. It really works, and I think that it does need to be balanced out by nutritional protocols if you're someone that has a health issue. And I also think that every person finds the way of eating that like makes them feel at their best, you know? And I actually did discover that for me, that is like mostly paleo, but not completely. And that's important. That was important for me, was that I continue to follow an anti-inflammatory Paleolithic diet, but not completely. I allow myself something from every food group. I don't banish every food group from my life, right? That could change person to person, but intuitive eating is a great place for anyone to start. And another one that helped me was by Emily Stimson Chapman, who's just a fabulous...
Oh, The Catholic Table?
The Catholic Table. It's just a fabulous read, because it also ties together like the gifts that we have as Catholics in regards to the way that we eat and the way that we celebrate with food. It's just very rich, And she also kind of talks about her personal experiences with eating.
Yeah.
And then if you're a college student, like, see if your school offers the Body Project, because that tends to be where you can find their small groups, is at universities.
Yeah.
And if you're not a college student or you can't find a group on your campus, then join a Magdala group if you haven't, because we actually base our part of our small group work on the Body Project. And, you know, if we have enough women coming to us in our small groups that are telling their leaders, this is a big problem for me, the body image, then maybe it's possible one day we can also offer the Body Project, you know, on the side as a supplement to our main curriculum. But for now, those are kind of the resources that I would say. There's a lot of other great books that I've read on my journey to purity. The most recent one would be this one called Christian Dating in a Godless World.
Yeah.
It's really good, by Reverend T.G. Morrow. Christian Dating in a Godless World. I would check that out, because I felt like it was a really balanced perspective about, like, all things chastity and purity, and it kind of helped me to feel really hopeful about dating in our culture right now. Cultivating that hope is just so vital to getting out of a negative body image, to getting into a place where you feel like, yeah, this does matter. My sexuality counts for something. It's not just, you know, a little tool to be used when I feel like feeling good. My sexuality has a weight to it, and it really matters that I take care of myself, and I take care of it, and use it in a loving way. Right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So
I think I'd tack on to that too, like a healing thing for me in recovery that helped me see the goodness of my body was just reading John Paul II's Theology of the Body, or Man and Woman, He Created Them. And I had a class that led me through the whole text in college, and that was a gift. But I'd encourage anybody who wants to understand, like, what is a person, and what is the person for? I think people collapse Theology of the Body into just a big book about sex, and that is, it could not be further from the truth. There's definitely sections on it, like, but it's an anthropology, or it's a theological anthropology. It's talking about the human person, and what does personhood mean? What does bodiliness as a human person mean? And that was very healing for me. So I'd encourage you, pick up the actual text. Don't go light on somebody's interpretation of it, though those are good. You know, pick up the actual John Paul II text and see if it doesn't start to restore your image of bodiliness and physicality just a little bit.
Yeah, I love that, because truly, like, nothing about the body is trivial, right?
No.
And we've talked about this so many times, but to every part, literally to every part of your body, there is a function. There's something beautiful and good. And beyond the aesthetics as well, right? Like, at the end of the day, we all just have to be happy that, like, we have functioning bodies. Like, what a gift.
And the goal is to keep them functioning, and not just functioning, but healthy. Mind, body, and soul. Okay, well, can land this plane. But thank you for joining me again. It's always a joy to get to talk to you. I literally told you this morning. We already talked today. Like, I think we talked yesterday, or no, 2 days ago, and today. Like,
it's a good week.
I talked to Mary Jo consistently, but no, and I was joking around the other day too, that with you, I'm like, okay, I'll call Mary Jo for 5 minutes and just touch base about this one thing. And it's like 1 hour later. And never ends up being just 5 minutes. But just thank you for sharing more deeply your experience and your wisdom. I think we could do a whole series on just body image and fitness and everything involved in this episode, but it was a joy to talk about it with you. And for our listeners, as always, you can always join us on Patreon for more exclusive content, and we are currently doing a book study on Dr. Bob Schucht's Be Restored on healing sexual wounds. It's lovely. The discussions are super fun and very transformative. So I'd encourage you to join us if you want exclusive content, or just if you want to become a supporter of Magdala's mission. You keep our resources free for the women involved, and we can't thank you enough. Please pray for us. And then also those of you who are looking for a software, we are partners with Covenant Eyes, and you can use the code Magdala to get a discount. I believe it's a month free. I can't remember which discount they gave us, but use the code Magdala if you would like to try out Covenant Eyes and give it a spin. It's lovely, and it encourages it doesn't just encourage filtering, it's accountability, and that's what's unique about the tool, and so we definitely encourage that. But yes, as always, keep us in your prayers. We are praying for you, and we will catch you on the flippity flip. Thanks for joining the conversation today on the Magdala podcast. If you want to learn more, join a support group with other women on the journey, or find more content, visit magdalaministries.org. If you want to continue to be a part of the conversation, like, subscribe, and share this podcast. But most importantly, wherever you are in the journey of healing, know that you're not alone and you don't have to hide anymore. We're excited to welcome you to the table next time. God bless.